Okay, so there's an Howard Stern thing going on that I wanted to talk about, but I didn't. I mean, I want to talk about with you, see what you have your input on. So basically, it's nothing super crazy. It's a short Fox News segment. We're gonna watch 5 minutes and we're gonna do some commentary. Blah 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 blah. But anyway, it's called Howard Stern torch for embracing woke politics and performative stupidity. I haven't watched the full thing. I've seen a little bit of recap where people are criticizing Howard Stern because he used to be like super edgy and now he seems to be super woke. I don't watch him regularly. I've seen a couple clips on TikTok. Some of the stuff he does is funny. Some of it's like mean. Like back in the day, he would like bully fat women and stuff. I forgot there was a segment like that.
We're gonna see where this goes, and depending on where it is, I'm gonna make you pull up the Howard Stern and Nicole Smith clip.
Yeah, well, I think maybe I will. But here's my thing. Here's my biggest thing. This is a fundamental issue I have with anybody who used to be edgy and now isn't edgy anymore, which I think is perfectly fine. People change and grow all the time. Those people, from what I've seen, seem to be the most aggressive against edginess. Like, as an edgy person myself, I still am edgy, but I've kind of shifted a little bit. I don't understand how you could look at somebody else who's engaging in the similar behavior you used to engage in and not give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt and be like, I understand because I was there where you were before. It seems like these individuals are the most aggressively against other people's edginess and ignorance, even though like your argument is you used to do that and now you're better. So that it was just the conditions, I guess, that you were brought up in, you know, made you not have a different life, basically made you have a different life experience that didn't bring you to the point where you were as empathetic as you feel like you should have been in the past. So that's my thing. It's like, I find it so annoying when people are so aggressively against it. That's just one thing I wanted to bring up, but let's watch this.
Shock jock. Howard Stern is embracing his woke side.
If woke means I can't get behind Trump, which is what I think it means, or that I support people who want to be transgender, or I'm for the vaccine, dude, call me woke as you want. I'm not for stupidity, but I am woke, and I love it.
I will say that all that is correct, by the way.
Yeah.
By the way, just like nowadays, wokeness used to be when people were like crazy, where it's like, oh my God, you can identify, like you can say that you have cat pronouns. Like that would be too woke. Nowadays, woke is when you think trans people should have access to medical care. Woke is now when you think that the vaccine is a positive. Woke is when you like worked during COVID and you saw people dying to COVID and go, we should probably get vaccines and wear masks. Like that's it. Like woke is being pro science.
Yeah.
It's being pro mental health science when it comes to trans people. It's pro being like pro like environmental science when it comes to like our earth. It's pro being science when it comes to the vaccine and wearing masks. And I don't wear masks anymore, but like that's all it is. Wokeness is when you think gay people should get married. Or they should be able to be just as miserable. No, I'm just kidding. I love you. Gay people should be able to get married too. Wokeness is when you think that like women should have an equal opportunity to advocate to having a job as long as they're just as capable. That's all wokeness now. Woke doesn't mean anything anymore. It literally just means anytime you agree with something on the left.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean, the word woke doesn't mean anything. It used to, I would argue, but now it just means anything that's left leaning is woke.
Wow.
Have a Tums.
A what?
A Tums.
A Tums. Oh, yeah.
America on Fox News Radio and Fox Nation. Jimmy Fallon joins us now. Jimmy, what would 90s Stern say to that shell of a man we just saw?
I don't know. What would 90s Stern say?
Oh, this is Fox News. I was like, who the fuck is talking like that?
Yeah, Fox News. I don't even know how. I feel like he wouldn't be that against what he said. I feel like he just wouldn't care. From what I understand of like 90s Stern, he would just be like, okay.
So far, I don't care.
Be so embarrassed.
That's fair.
Okay, because think about it. Howard Stern.
Just to be clear, when she says she doesn't care, what she's saying is that nobody should care. This is stupid, and they're being performative. And like, if anybody read what Howard Stern or heard what Howard Stern just said, and they're like, "Yeah, what a bad guy," you're probably struggling because like he didn't say anything provocative in any capacity.
Made his name by raging against the machine. Okay, he was a guy giving the FCC the finger at every turn. He's now joined the machine. A guy who was one.
I think that it's basically like what regulates the television or whatever. I'll look it up.
The champion of the little guy, okay, is now telling you, no, I'm with big pharma and big government who fired the little guy if he didn't want to play along and get the vaccine. But let me tell you what it boils down to in a nutshell. This matters, okay? And this is real perspective. Okay, if radio careers were cruise ships, Howard Stern is obviously a Carnival cruise ship with the slide and the diving board. I'm the inflatable raft the Somali pirates are on, okay? I'm pulling up to the oil tanker like, I am the captain now, okay? But Donald Trump's media omnipotence broke Howard Stern. This is very important. Trump used to be on Stern's show show every week.
Yeah.
They were friends. So this idea that Trump was the worst guy who ever walked the face of the earth, why were you hanging out with him? Okay. But
well, I would say to just to be very clear about like Trump and how he used to be versus now, like, yeah, he was very used to getting positive like media tabloid coverage. And then when he was up to politics, you get very negative coverage. And there is a justifiable reason for that. Whether you think that he was actively trying to be racist or not, the way that he spoke, we could be a dog whistle to a lot of racist people to make them feel like when he said something like Mexico sending their worst over, if you want to be charitable and say like, oh, he was just saying that there are some bad people who come over, he might have been, but there's a lot of people who interpret that as like, oh, we're going to use that to justify hating people, from south of the border and try to make it seem like all of them are bad people coming over. So like, just at the very least, his irresponsibility in the way that he talked was a problem. But once you step into like, you go from like a businessman, a New York businessman, which just says some edgy, dumb shit sometimes, which I could appreciate, to the leader of the United States. You're not representing just like the apprentice anymore. You're representing 350 million Americans. You have to be careful about the way that you communicate to people. You don't want to encourage divisiveness. So of course, there's going to be a reason there's going to be a difference.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, my perspective on Trump, honestly, is that I think that becoming president was more of like an accomplishment thing to him, probably. Like, oh, I could probably do this.
Yeah, he did.
And then like,
gotta give him that.
who was he going to align with? The people who want money for themselves, which is more of a Republican perspective.
I think you could argue that there are also Democrats who still do generally advocate or will keep some of the status quo available to make money. Like nobody was advocating for getting control of lobbying groups or anything like that. But I do understand what you're saying. Generally speaking, Republicans coming in go cut taxes mostly for the rich. That helps the rich. The tax cuts that Trump did, it was effectively just going to the bank and taking out a $10,000 loan and saying, I made $10,000. I think the overwhelming majority of it had a positive impact for rich people and business and corporations, and it had a very temporary impact that's already over for middle class people. And it's, they generally, I would say Republicans are more for the interest of the top because they think that that's somehow trickle down economics is going to work. It's not. Our annual federal deficit skyrocketed under Trump, where it was going down under Obama. And then the economy was in like, it was nice, but it wasn't like long term. We would have had to hit 6.7% GDP just for the tax cuts to actually be financially like viable. We hit 4.2 at the top most. No economist was saying that you were ever going to be able to pay this off. It never worked. So yeah, sure, I agree with that.
And like when you were little, like you even said how like Trump was like the man, like for you to get your nails.
Yeah, Trump
done,
was the man when I was little.
Trump gets manicure. So of
My
course
mom
Howard
told me that,
Stern, who just had girls with big titties on his podcast or whatever it was called then, of course Trump was going to be president and be a cool guy. Yeah. But like as he moved into his presidency, like I said, I think it was more of like an accomplishment of saying like, oh, like I did this.
Yeah.
And I truly don't think that Trump believes in what he says as a politician, but I do think that he's indifferent about the impact.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like when he talks about abortion, he's like, I believe he's gotten abortions. Well, he hasn't personally, but he doesn't give a shit. He used to be pro-abortion. He doesn't really care. I'm sure that some of the women he fucked would get abortions before, and now he's like, yeah, I don't really care about this. It has no impact on my life. I'm like however years old, and I'm married, and like I have a vasectomy or something. Probably it doesn't mean anything to me. He probably isn't different. He probably just doesn't care about the negative impact of what he says.
Yeah. So like when it comes to like Trump as a person, I don't know. I don't want to get into all the politics of everything. But when it comes to Trump as a person versus Trump as like a president, like no shit, he's like Stern is gonna shift.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, that's just the thing, is not everybody is right for every job. Just on a smaller level, let's say you work with somebody and they're like really like they're an excellent worker with you. Maybe, you guys are equals, you guys do really well together, and then they get promoted over you and all of a sudden they're dog shit. Like they don't know how to run or manage, and all their weaknesses are shining. And then you're like, this guy sucks. And people are like, oh, hypocritical of you. You used to be good friends with him. It's like, yeah, he's my boss now and he's really bad at it and he's micromanaging me in a way that he doesn't understand how to work. It's like that, I think. This happens all the time. It doesn't really show any level of hypocrisy when somebody takes like a drastic role change.
No, and I don't think that Stern's perspective, this is just an educated guess based on Howard Stern and what I know of him. Mm-hmm. I would say that he probably had, I guess, for back then, we're talking 90s, right? Like chicks with dicks was probably something that he engaged with regularly.
Like he would have engaged with that type of like you know, perspective kind of a thing. Like that was the aura of his. Yeah, sure. Okay.
So I would imagine that he would have engaged with that back in the 90s, and then engages with trans people now today.
Now that we have a better, robust understanding of trans people, it's like, oh, that was insensitive. I shouldn't have said that, and you move forward. Yeah, sure.
So. And then what was the third thing?
I don't even know.
Oh, the vaccine. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
It's just like we're at a point now where if you don't believe that the vaccines have a positive effect, like you're just being like, it's hard to engage with somebody that you're just not going to listen to any factual information that comes across your face.
Related to COVID, something that I'm truly, this is off topic.
Yeah.
But I'm truly interested in is I had a conversation with somebody the other day that apparently, and when they had this conversation with me, I just smiled and nodded my head because I wasn't going to engage with them. They were older.
Yeah, of course.
But apparently some study came out that like masks are not effective in preventing COVID from being spread.
That's just not true.
That's what I was thinking. But they were referencing that, and they were talking about, I don't know, just all this stuff with masks, and she was on about
just to be very clear. If a mask can, like, their argument is that the COVID is too small to go through, and it goes through the mask fibers. If that was true, though, then I feel like all of your sneezes would be as well. Like, obviously, it's going to reduce the amount that's going to be going through your body.
Yeah. But anyways, they were just talking about masks and children in school and how terrible that these masks weren't even effective, and we had all these kids in school wearing the mask. And I'm just curious, maybe, I know this will be a point of the segment, if you have kids, was them wearing masks really that big of a deal?
Probably not, but they're annoying and they probably just wouldn't keep them on.
Because I'm curious about that for myself, because I'm like, why? Like, I feel like it's not that big of a thing, but I don't know.
So just to be clear, my understanding of the mask situation, just from like listening to NPR during it a lot and like engaging with it, because I worked at a job, I had to work during COVID. I was responsible for dealing with COVID because I worked on buses. I had to disinfect 200 buses in a night with my crew in a yard, because we still had sick people still needed to get to dialysis, and they needed to do stuff and get to the hospital, and we would service the or clean the paratransportation buses and the transportation buses, and there were still some that were in service because people, they needed to do some things. My understanding was that at the beginning of it, there was such limited resources that I think some kind of information came out that masks may not have been as effective as potentially a tactic to get people to not overbuy up masks and to reduce hysteria.
100%.
And so that seems to have a trickle-down effect of now people are like, oh my God, it never worked. It did work. It always worked.
They were referencing like a recent study, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's just what they're saying is not true. I don't know. I don't know what study they're referencing.
Yeah, I know the doctors wouldn't wear masks during surgery. Like, I don't know.
Doctors always wear masks during surgeries, even before COVID.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's my point.
So they're fucking dumb. That doesn't even make sense. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what they're referencing. It's probably just some dumb bullshit that came out of some fucking like alternative media source moron that doesn't know what he's talking about. And for some reason, like, still, there's an obsession with coronavirus. Like, why? Just weird. Like, cope. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, weird COVID tangent, but since it came up.
Yeah, right. Okay,
came along and had a similar act to Howard's in the sense that he was crass and vulgar, and he really did resonate with the little guy. And he rode that mentality all the way to the White House. It killed Howard.
I don't think that Howard Stern... I don't think that the little guy related to Howard Stern.
I don't know what the little guy comes from.
I think that men are fucking pigs.
Yeah, that's all it was.
And he was being a pig publicly.
Yeah, and I think that if you ask...
And then in that case, every guy is the little guy. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
No, yeah, I think that, like, I don't think Howard Stern would be like, yeah, I should be president. We're not talking about Trump making another podcast in competition with Stern. We're talking about Trump becoming president. There's different standards that you would hold people to. Like, if you had a professional MMA fighter that you thought was awesome, was for the little guy, and they got elected a president and they did a terrible job, you wouldn't all of a sudden be like, oh my God, well, he was a good fighter. Why wouldn't he be a good... Like, it's just a stupid argument.
Because he was the king of all media. He had that super ego of like, I'm the most important person to ever open their mouth in front of a microphone. And suddenly Trump turned Howard from the king of all media into the...
Yeah, I feel like all of this is stupid. I mean, I'm gonna scroll through this really quick to see if there's like any other information that Stern gave. But I don't think I care anymore. Like, all this is dumb. They're having a 5-minute
at the end of his joints.
They're having a 5-minute dumb fucking conversation. Oh, it was only the first 3 minutes. The next 2 are something else that's completely irrelevant.
Wow, that was literally
that was nothing. They extracted all that from him saying, "Hey, I support trans people in science." That's all he really said is, "I support science." That's all they did. That's all he said. The coldest take I've ever heard in my life has turned into a Fox News segment.
I hate them.
It's crazy. It's actually insane. It really just doesn't matter, right?
Those are the type of people who like sports. That's cool. Yeah.
That's calling back to the last segment. If you're watching this segment, you should watch that one as well when it comes out.